everyone.
Hello everyone.
Today we are going to talk about Sheki Mei.
Taking you around Chunwan,
Sociology,
深水埗
How Long War City,
Central.
Welcome to Kaitech 2.0.
After the British occupied TST, they turned it into a military cemetery and a residential area for foreigners. You can still see many colonial buildings in TST now, such as the 1881 Heritage Signal Tower in Signal Hill, and the Hong Kong Observatory headquarters. Actually, there are a total of 17 historic buildings are preserved by the government. And there is a Hong Kong Heritage Discovery Center located inside the Kowloon Park. Through this center, we found out that this park used to be a military base. It was a naval barracks for the British to observe coastal defense in Victoria Harbour. From an empty bay to a military base, and now a top tourist destination. Tsim Sha Tsai's journey is like a witness to Hong Kong's history and reinvention.
It was developed from the end of Second World War. In the 1950s, Hong Kong had a lot of people was returning to the city, and also with the influx of immigrants, the housing supply was insufficient. Therefore, Sheki Mei became the area built with many scrap wood and corrugated iron self-made squatter settlements. There were some historical facts about the area. On Christmas of 1953, a fire incident broke out in Sheki Mei. The fire swept through the widest area in the history of Hong Kong, making over 50,000 people homeless. Sheki Mei Estate, born in 1950s to solve the homeless problem in Hong Kong, and it is the first experiment on public housing. It established a strong foundation to the public housing, which is a strong symbol to Hong Kong as a rising modern city from the 60s. And it continues to develop like a suburb of the metropolitan part of Hong Kong. Shop that only sells rice could also be found that show a special vibrancy from Sheki Mei since 1953 of the rice shop.
From the development of schooling culture and economic activities, we can see the social fabric is changing in Sheki Mei, and new social dynamics at that time were caught, and the neighbor interaction had changed to be living in the same building together, like the concept of social laboratory from Chicago School, which is used to describe a place development.
At the same time, the regional planning of Taiwan is very consistent with the urban planning theory of J. Jacobs. She emphasized that the blocks should be short and small, and opposite the car-centered urban design. Short blocks can increase pedestrian mobility and interaction opportunities, and increase the vitality of the community. In Taiwan, except for the main traffic road, all other places are pedestrian paced. At the same time, all kinds of shops are lined up on both sides of the pedestrian path, ranging from restaurants, supermarkets, and cheap daily necessities stores. This coincides with Jacob's view that successful urban areas must serve multiple main functions rather than a single use.
Put it into our case, when people moved into Sheki Mei Estate, people were living in a very narrow environment. People may need to live with another family. Different cultures crash in this small area and finally form a unique subculture in Sheki Mei Estate. People living there will consider themselves as residents of Sheki Mei Estate and have a very good relationship with each other. They will help each other when one of them face problems. We can see that people living there will share things with each other from this report. This photo can also prove this. Residents of Mayhall House will form an alumni group to promote the history of Mayhall House. Thus, this subculture includes things we may consider strange nowadays, like primary school on a rooftop.
Compared to Tuen Mun in 1960s, Tuen Mun had just started to plan its development. Only few villagers was living there. and it experienced a highly rude development led by the government with the experience of developing other areas in Hong Kong that has a contrast with the development in Shek Kip Mei that experienced fire, theft causes, and the first public housing concept, the resettlement housing, located there.
Compared to Tsuen Wan in the 1960s, Tsuen Wan is experienced a transition from agricultural to industrial areas. You can see that there was still a lot of farmland or mountains area in Tsuen Wan at that time from this photo. There are only a few industrial buildings, not to mention any tenements. We can say that Shek Kip Mei was far more modern than Tsuen Wan at that time.
Compared to Sha Tin in 1960s, Sha Tin was still developing in that time. The public housing in Sha Tin are mostly similar to Shek Kip Mei. We can see that government used Shek Kip Mei as a template to develop other areas' public housing. Not only in public housing, the privacy housing estate also copied that from it. By adopt the compartmentalization, separate all of the areas in different parts efficiently.
The area around Taiwan MTR station is probably the busiest part of the neighborhood. Most people come to use the transportation to get to work or school by MTR or the bus terminus nearby. The transportation hub includes a bus terminus, minibus stop, taxi stands, and shuttle service for nearby housing estates. TST offers excellent transportation options, making it a vital connection point. On my right-hand side, you will find the Star Ferry Pier. The Star Ferry operating since 1898, it has connected Hong Kong Island and Kowloon for more than a century. The trips across Victoria Harbour takes only about 15 minutes, providing convenient access to Hong Kong Island. On my left-hand side is a large bus terminus offering multiple routes to different districts. TST features 2 MTR stations, Tsim Sha Tsui and East Tsim Sha Tsui Station, with 11 exits connecting to various parts of the district.
At the core, the idea of the sprawl refers to the development and growth of the new urban areas. In particular, our core reading talks about the government-sponsored sprawl to develop more housing in the US to alleviate poverty. That being said, it should be noted that this type of horizontal sprawl draws attention to how, because of the phenomenon, has led to the emergence of suburbanism, where there's just rows and rows of housing with little to no commercial areas, causing a dependency on automobile transport, such as cars, creating a phenomenon known as the urban sprawl mentioned by Ross. So, how does this apply to the situation in Hong Kong, or at least in Tsuen Wan? Well, funnily enough, it kind of doesn't, at least not outwardly. As you may recall, the article sets its focus on the US, but not for us in Hong Kong. We experience something that is completely different, where the US may have a lot, and I mean a lot of land compared to us. Hong Kong is actively trying to combat against the lack of land for housing due to our geographical features. There's even an idiom for it, 地少人多. So our solution is, as we've mentioned, reclamation and excavation of hills. But that's not enough. In fact, despite the Hong Kong government's efforts to move mountains and seas to create more land, there's never enough. So we propose that Hong Kong is experiencing a different type of sprawl, the vertical sprawl. While the horizontal urban sprawl suggests that development goes like this, vertical sprawls, as evident by their name, goes like this. So rather than the single-use units taking up more land, various usage type spaces are built on top of each other to form high-rise buildings. This was evident during our visit to Tsuen Wan, which, gasp, shocker, who would have thought, as we saw residential areas atop of shopping malls, supermarkets under sports centers, and even stores that emulated the vertical sprawl as their store shelves teetered higher up than me, and how a single unit of space could have multiple usages from shopping to eating. All this, to an extent, combats some of the problems highlighted for the horizontal sprawl, where low-density, single-use, scattered development is less prominent as the nature of Hong Kong requires preemptive urban planning on the government's part. But what about the other problems such as dependency on automobile transport due to urban sprawl, or other problems related to community division and formation? For that, I've enlisted the help of two of my best friends from the US to help us compare our two different situations.
But then when I went to the city, I thought the buildings were very close together. They were very it was like I think New York buildings are close together, but I low-key think Hong Kong might have been like a little more in comparison. So I did take the bus a couple of times. I thought the bus was pretty nice. I thought it did work pretty well. I didn't personally though direct or anything everywhere. Knowing what bus to take, it just takes some practice. I thought the subways were nice. The subways weren't too hard to like.
You could survive without a car, but it's still really hard to get around and get to like all the necessities you need for like a daily life. I'd say there is a good sense of community here, but there is a park nearby, like nearby enough to where I think within a nice like 3-mile radius of that park, you could actually like connect and meet people from other places. And
these thoughts were also echoed throughout our own visits to Tsuen Wan as well. Beginning with transport, I personally found it easy to get to Tsuen Wan all the way from the northeastern side of Hong Kong, and with the plethora of different transportation methods at Hong Kong employs, our automobile dependency, at least in regards to private vehicles, would be considered less than that of the US.
Wall City Park is the famous landmark in the area. Follow us to have a short park walk. Taking this time tell you some history about the park. As we know, the park was previously the Kowloon Wall City. It was a small military camp before the Opium War. To protect against the British invasions, the Cheng government built a city wall in Kowloon in 1847. After that, the government's office and military barrack were established in the area. Therefore, we can see some military weapons now. Due to the historical treaties, the British government has no authorities to govern the wall city, while the Chinese government were difficult to administer. The city becoming a low man's land, it was known for various illegal activity. The British Hong Kong government tried to regulate the wall city by sending the police patrols, but its special status made this difficult. In 1983, discussions between China and the UK regarding the Hong Kong's future led to the 1987 Sino-British Joint Declarations, which allows the
你聽過一句古老説話，仗義每多屠狗輩味，唔係話中意劏狗、中意食狗嘅人，係話俾人聽最有人情味嘅人就係最低下階層嘅人。我用呢句説話嚟形容呢裏面嘅居民嘅，佢哋好融洽、好團結。
There is a footbridge right next to the MTR exit, connecting the estate to the estate office, with a mini playground and exercise equipment for the elderly. This reveals the population is composed of family with children and elderly. For shopping and daily necessity, they have to walk along the Changshawan Road for 10 minutes to Changshawan Government Office or Dragon Center, where it is a 9-story mall with retail store, food courts and department store.
The underground and MTR pedestrian walkways create a walkable environment and reduce street congestion by redirecting pedestrians during peak hours.
Similar to any industrial area, the area is surrounded by industrial buildings. The multi-purpose building that you can see now is D2 Place. They consist of two buildings, D2 Place 1 and D2 Place 2. They were transformed from Kin Yi Plaza and Laurel Plaza, respectively, in the 2010s. The name D2 stands for Designer's Dream, where from here you can already tell the focus of this renewal is to facilitate the cultural, creative and art-related industry rather than the technological development like Kuntong. Inside this building, most shops are related to fashion, local products or pet supplies. The rooftop of the two buildings are designed for different purposes. One is a green space that is pet-friendly, another is a rooftop farm. Although the size is not huge, it provided an open space for people to rest in such a dense area.
Sha Tsui is widely recognized as a tourist paradise, which is why there are so many hotels there, from luxury to budget-friendly options. Everyone can find a place that fits their wallet, while hotels dominate the landscape.
Tim Sha Tsui is a famous tourist and commercial center in Hong Kong. It is home to many ritzy restaurants, luxury stores, and social media popular stores, attracting a large number of consumers. From the high-end shopping experience of K11 Museum to the Michelin restaurant next to Victoria Harbour, there's no doubt that Tim Sha Tsui is a place of luxury and modernity. Tim Sha Tsui and Tai Wei also have significant differences in ethnic makeup and population dynamics. Tim Sha Tsui is one of the most diverse areas in Hong Kong. The best example is Chongqing Mansions, which gathers businessmen, temporary workers, and asylum seekers from South Asia, Africa, and Middle East. Time magazine selected as the best example of global integration, saying that this building, which brings together 120 different races and thriving business activities, fully reflects cultural diversity. A multicultural and academic network has been formed here. Jacobs emphasized the importance of diversity. She said that a field city is a place of low energy. What she has been calling the diverse arises only in high energy systems. Urban vitality comes from diversity, and this element of diversity also promotes social interaction, especially between different races, and continuous regional development. At the same time, the coexistence of multiple functions in Chongqing Mansions has attracted people from different cultural backgrounds to form an active community. Multiple religions and cultures collide here, and coexistence creates a new sense of cultural belongings. In contrast, Tai Wei is a community dominated by local resistance with a relatively homogeneous ethnic composition. Most resistants are Hong Kong local, and there are many students from CTU, CUHK, and Baptist University who live here. Because the housing prices are low and living costs are more affordable, making Tai Wei the main choice of working-class family and young people.
Tsim Sha Tsui is Hong Kong's international business card. The culture here is fluid and global. The South Asian community in the Mosque and Chongqing building, art exhibitions, and luxury stores coexist. However, behind this diversity, traditional customs are almost gone. There are no clean festivals and no certain cultural passed down from generation to generation. Neighbors in Tsim Sha Tsui are invisible. Most residents here are tenants or tourists passing each other but rarely talking. The sense of security depends on intensive police force and surveillance, rather than trust between people. This is a prosperous but alienated island. Turning into Tai Wei village in the new territories, the neighborhood here is concrete. The wall village built in the Ming Dynasty was once a fortress for the Wei clan to defend against bandits and foreign enemies. Villagers still worship the god of land in front of the gate and pray for peace. This is not only a ritual, but also the mark of the blood connection. These activities are not only customs, but also the glue of the community. In modern Hong Kong, Tai Wei Village proves that cultural roots are still deeply buried beyond steel and concrete.
The differences between Tai Wei and Tsim Sha Tsui demonstrate that Hong Kong is a city that combines postmodern, global, and traditional local elements. Yet these two may conflict with each other. We have walked through Hong Kong's colonial era, its modernization, and the corners with different cultural line. Next, we are about to delve further into Hong Kong to explore the urban and social issues of today's Hong Kong.